Okay, so a warm welcome to everybody who's dialed in, and I can see we have attendees from all over the globe. We'll start by kicking things off. So my name is Daniel Holmberg, and I'm the head of sales for Quinix in the UK. And I'm joined today with my colleague and speaker, Sammy Walton. Sammy, do you want to say hi to everyone?
Hi, everyone. My name's Sammy. I'm Director of Sales Engineering at Quinix, so I'm looking forward to speaking with you today.
Excellent. Thank you, Sammy. And so for today's agenda, we are here to have a presentation on the power of the data-driven workforce management. So Sammy will be walking you through a presentation. And throughout the presentation, we really welcome your questions. So feel free to ask as many as possible. And so how do you ask questions through the Zoom app? Well, you have this Q&A box in the bottom of your application that you're welcome to use at any time. And we'll be addressing those in the end. So with that, Sammy, I'll hand the floor over to you.
Thank you, Daniel. So welcome everyone today, this webinar, as we talk about how to unleash your workforce with data-driven workforce management solutions. First, just a couple of slides background on Quinix and who we are, if you're not familiar. So our purpose is really to create a better life for millions of people by improving their work lives through the tools and the software that we create. For us, workforce management and the software that we build focuses on a number of different areas, from forecasting labor demands, creating schedules in various ways, engagement in communication with the business, the employees, the managers, performing task, time and attendance, and data insights. So wrapping that all up and understanding what's going on in the business. And we'll touch on a few of these areas as we go through the presentation today and talk a little bit about data and how that can help you and how we work with that today. Some of the customers that we already work with are here. And Quinix works with many customers across all different kinds of verticals and all over the world. Those customers could be from retail, hospitality, healthcare, or logistics. But we'll look at some of the ROI figures from some of these customers later. But no matter your business, if you have labor and labor requirements, of course, we can help you, and we'd love to hear from you. So what does data-driven workforce management actually mean? Well, it means a few different things. Really, it means using the data as the foundation of your decision-making. So good data equals good decisions, adding some evidence behind any decision that you make. This leads to more confident decisions for both your business and, in turn, your employees. It can help drive better engagement, create a stronger ROI, and help you gain additional insights into your business. It also means using tools, workflows, and perhaps solutions that were not possible in the past. So we live in an age of technology and SaaS solutions, which makes being able to gather data and use data much more accessible. And in the future, it means solutions proactively providing suggested actions to you, the users of those solutions. And these could be based on learned behaviors and automated predictions. And we'll talk a little bit about, again, what we do today and what we might see in the future. And as we go through this presentation, there's a few key questions that I'd like you to think about and sort of ask yourself. And some of these might be, are my schedules optimized for my business goals? And what are your business goals? Where do you want to be in the long term with your hiring plans, any required skills or forecasted labor requirements? Are your employees engaged and happy? If so, or if not, what effect is this having on your business? Are you compliant as a business as you are creating schedules and assigning the shifts to employees? Can you easily identify trends in your workforce and react to them? Are your workforce management processes efficient? And how can technology help you learn from past successes and failures? These are some of the areas that we'll see we touch on, and some of the areas that might prompt you to take action today. For the purpose of today, I really want to drill down into two specific areas when we talk about using data to help the business. The first one is engagement, and the second is about business optimization. And I think the two are very tightly linked together, and both can be improved using data, artificial intelligence, and levels of automation as well. When we dig into engagement, we look at different ways of interacting with employees using the right tools. This can help increase their satisfaction, their engagement, which in turn lowers turnover and increases productivity. When your employees are happy and engaged, this yields better business returns throughout different areas. It doesn't stop there though. As you communicate with them, provide them recognition and gather their opinions, as a business, you have a responsibility to act on the data that you gather from their feedback. And of course, you need the tools to be able to do that. The data that you get there can be invaluable to a business, helping you understand how employees feel when they're at work, what's working for them, what isn't working for them. And of course, we can use this data to track information over time to help you understand other reactions that you're putting in place working. Some of the statistics that we see around data-driven engagement, we know that over $7 trillion per year are lost to businesses with disengaged employees. That's a huge amount of money. 70% of employees don't respond to annual surveys, citing it might take too much of their time away, or would rather respond to quick-fire questions asked consistently. 89% of HR leaders agree that ongoing check-ins are key for success. So being able to check the pulse of your workforce, very quickly checking in with colleagues or employees, even peer-to-peer check-ins. And 21% increase in productivity from engaged employees. So that's a huge level of increase in productivity. And even if it's just a fraction of that, I think the business can really gain from using a lot of data to help drive their employees' engagement. When we look at optimization, this really talks about optimizing the workforce for your business goals without sacrificing employee satisfaction. Now, optimization can mean different things to different businesses. So it's good to think about what are your optimization goals. The right tools can help you reach them without sacrificing optimization or engagement in other areas of the business. Using historical and actual data, we can help shape workflows around optimization, make data-based decisions that can lead to more time-efficient processes, allowing people like schedule managers to focus on their work being managers of employees in the store or centrally. And of course, all of this helps prop up the overall ROI for the business. I said earlier, optimization means different things to different businesses. Here we see 3 examples, but it doesn't mean if I'm focusing on optimization for cost that I need to ignore employee happiness and overall performance. It could mean that I first optimize my schedules for cost and then start to look at other areas on top of this. So the primary focus area may be cost, but I can still reap benefits from employee happiness and overall performance or productivity. And happiness is one of those things that can take many forms. And how do you know what it means for your employees? If you don't know, how do you plan on gathering that data as well? Some of the ROI we see from businesses that use tools like the workforce management to optimize their business, huge increase in administration and employee turnover, obviously reduced payroll costs, a need to be able to stay compliant as well. Increasing communication can have a roll-on effect to all other areas of the business. And of course, overall increase in employee satisfaction, which can help in a number of areas. And this is just one example that I wanted to use to wrap this all up. An ROI that we saw from one customer that had 30 stores, 300 employees, and in the first 6 months of use, really optimizing their business and using data for engagement, we saw a sales uplift, a reduction in payroll admin from 2 days to 5 minutes, which is huge. 100% of their employees were engaged into the business using the mobile app. They'd saved 655 hours of unplanned absence and a saving of overtime, which equated to 25,000 euros. So again, this is just one example, and these will obviously differ depending on the type of business and the areas that you are seeking to optimize or use data to help you. But we can see some really valid returns from some of the things that we're going to talk about. So how do we do this? How do we use the tools? What are the tools that we use today? I want to start by talking around using a forecast as a foundation for optimized schedules. This is the first step in really understanding our approach. We see a quality forecast as the foundation for a quality scheduling process. A good forecast means more accurate schedules, perhaps less required overtime, a better understanding of cost and long-term capacity requirements. So we can help businesses create a quality forecast in a few ways, but using historical data here is key to help tools like machine learning understand trends in your specific business and generate a forecast to deploy forwards that is specific to you. The things that you take into consideration or the things that you don't want to take into consideration. Overall, this yields a quicker process and more accurate results, so much quicker than trying to do it manually, of course. And you may have tools in the business today that generate a forecast for you, and that's great. Often we see an increase in forecast accuracy when we use machine learning to perform the task. Behind the forecast are auto-scheduling rules that indicate what your labor requirements should be. These can use labor standards and other business guidelines to help guide that process. And auto-scheduling tools are used to automatically create a schedule to meet that forecasted demand, taking into consideration business rules, compliance rules, such as opening times, minimum, maximum shift lengths, break rules, the rest between shifts, all kinds of things that need to really be considered to build a schedule that is both optimal and compliant. And these don't have to be fully automated. You can have a partially automated workflow as well, where you might deploy someone's or a group of employees' fixed scheduling template and then automate the peaks on top of that. Or you could choose to automate the entire process. The guidance that sits in place to guide a schedule manager on where the labor demand should be at any given time on a 15-minute period, a 30-minute period, an hour, a day, a month, they are independent of the automated scheduling processes. So I'll always be able to see, as I make live changes, how close does that get me to my optimal goal? How much am I over or under scheduled, and where? We also have intelligent suggestions as well. So looking at the data contained in employees' agreements, absences, skills, even their desirability to work, we can make smart suggestions to that schedule manager. Who is the best candidate to take this unassigned shift? Saving that schedule manager from endless time trying to find this information manually or ringing around a list of employees. In some cases, simply scheduling that same person and again, because they have a relationship with that person, because that person always takes the shifts when they call, or they're simply friends with that person. So allowing the tool to provide those suggestions to you can really increase business optimization and help save time. And it doesn't just end from the web interfaces as well. At Quinix, we are a mobile-first solution. And this means bringing this type of functionality available on mobile devices as well. So for managers, again, I can get that reassignment suggestion. We can also calculate the cost of each employee, taking into consideration any overtime or unsocial time that might apply on top of the cost for that employee. We also have proactive intelligence, which can send notifications to employees who want to work, letting them know that there is an unassigned shift that matches the times they're interested in working. Either they're on holiday from university or school, or they want to pick up some additional hours. So this again saves time from the manager needing to perform those actions manually, and the solution takes on the responsibility to notify those employees. We have a highly rated app that not only helps drive engagement by being an easy to use app and full of functionality, but it can also integrate into employees' lives with all their other technology that they use, like synchronizing their work calendar and personal calendars in one place, and even working with digital assistants to help them day to day. Remember, I spoke about gathering employee feedback and opinions often rather than an end-of-year survey. These tools are built right into the same scheduling app that employees use multiple times a day. Quick and easy to answer questions engages them to respond and helps the business, helps you as a business keep track of their response rates over time so you can take that appropriate action. The same app includes gamification, boosting peer-to-peer and manager-to-employee recognition as well. Again, this yields productivity through engagement. And having a place where all of this data resides can help even in turbulent times. So recently, we've been able to reach out to our customers with information on how to use the workforce management data to keep track of a virus spread within their business. For example, if someone was diagnosed, we can help the business understand who that person had worked with, which locations, were those employees shared among other locations. And we can also use the pulse surveys on the back of that to help track stress levels and check in with our employees regularly during a crisis. So really invaluable ways to use the data. We even have methods to help you understand how the workforce management tool is being used by the business. So comparing data over time, comparing to industry trends, perhaps even comparing forecast types. What did the AI suggest versus what the local manager suggested versus what actually happened, and perhaps even compared to what was originally budgeted. And then that opens up the questions for why did this happen, and allowing the business to take appropriate action. We can really dig into granular data to keep track of costs in particular areas or particular labor types, even mobile adoption rates, comparing location by location, and compliance breaches, which locations or me as a business, how compliant have I been, and where have those compliant breaches taken place. So that's a little bit about how we can help you today with the tools that exist, and some insight into the types of questions that you might want to ask within your own business. But what about the future? What are some of the things that we talk about at Quinix, or the trends that we see in workforce management? And these are things that we constantly talk about bringing to the solution in the future, but really interesting topics that we can dive into a little bit. This first one looks at using publicly available data to help artificial intelligence predict impacts to your workforce. So this graph is simply showing absent rates over time in Sweden, very directly correlated with absence against employers and how they saw that. And we see that in our customers' data as well. And we can use this data in the future, potentially, to help make suggestions. So one example might be where I log into my scheduling tool and my dashboard that I use every day to help me understand what I need to take action on, gives me the indication that there is a high risk of last-minute absence for the coming days, or what that percentage might look like. But beyond that, it could also suggest actions. So we see a box towards the bottom there that says, the Quinix Assistant says, tomorrow there is a 67% risk of last-minute absence. We're already underscheduled by 25%. Would you like me to add an extra assigned shift to the schedule and send a text message to all available people asking if they can take it? So with a one-click action, we could see multiple actions being taken based on data that's available both inside the business and external to the business, things that are going to impact us. Machine learning could understand how users interact with the software and suggest actions. So in the previous example where we're looking at data that's available outside the solution, this one could be you log in every day and you click on these things and you look at this view. You narrow down the view that you're looking at to timesheets, for instance. So machine learning can see that you do that often and say, hey, this is something that you are doing quite often. Would you like me to automate this for you in the future? So when you log in, this is the view that you see, or save it as a filter. So machine learning understanding the way that users use the software and reacting to it, making it feel a lot more personalized to them. So we mentioned a little bit about badges and recognition and rewards, but using data to automate those badges and provide recognition and awards. So it could possibly be things like an employee punching in on time every day for a month, automatically assigning a badge to them and automatically associating some sort of award to them or reward to them. That could be in the form of additional financial compensation. It could be a voucher for a coffee. It could be anything, but automating that based on what's actually going on in the solution, I think will be absolutely key. We also talk a lot about, again, optimization and automating optimization insights. So again, keeping in mind, it means different things to different businesses, but there are some things that I think are key across all businesses, like churn risk, for instance. Understanding, are the edits that I'm making good or bad? Is that increasing, decreasing the risk of churn for my employees based on their happiness or their desirability on when they would like to work? It could be patterns such as employees punching out early on Friday. And while we can see a lot of those trends today, helping deliver them to a manager in an automated way to understand if they're getting better or worse can really help. Compliance is another area that is increasingly important. It could be suggestions such as, in the last 2 years, you remained 90% compliant. The 10% compliance breaches that you had were in a specific area of the business by this unit, by this manager. And once we know all that historical data, we can look to the future and say, based on that historical data, in 2 weeks' time, you'll have this number of compliance breaches in this area on these shifts if you don't start to take action on those things now. We can also look at things like buddy systems as well. So what if you want to schedule an employee for a shift? And today we see that we use data to provide suggested employees based on skills and agreements and rights to work and things like that. But what's the probability that the employee will either accept the shift or be highly productive? Well, in the future, we talk about looking at ways to see who else is working. What if Daniel's working and I want to schedule Sammy? Then it might be 73% likely that Sammy will be productive if he accepts this invite because he very much enjoys working with Daniel. But perhaps that could go the opposite way as well. What if Sammy enjoys working with Daniel a little too much and they're not that productive because they sit around and chat all day? So being able to track that data and provide suggestions based on this type of information could help businesses as well. When we look at using our time clock functionality today, we obviously capture images. We can capture images when people clock in from various devices. But what about using facial recognition to automatically create a deviation? There's a less than 90% likelihood that the person that walked into the business today is the same person on their profile picture that is scheduled to work today, and alerting the manager of that. And we also look at integrating Quinix to other areas of technology that people use in their day-to-day lives, not just digital assistants, but things like step counters. So the health kits that we use today on our watches or our Fitbits, we're very much in a gamification mode where we want to know how many steps we've taken and how close am I to reaching my personal goals. So what about blending that work-life balance? Today, when I clock out, I could be notified that I've taken 10,000 steps today, and that's reached my daily target. Maybe a little bit of friendly competitiveness between colleagues or units in the business, making work a fun place to be. That's one of our goals at Quinix as well. So all in all, summarizing some of the things that we've talked about today, I believe that the data will really talk to you if you're willing to listen. You know, you can use data to make evidence-based decisions that strengthen the case for what you're trying to achieve as a business. We can obviously help you with that. For those that are new to Quinix and not yet engaged with talking to us, we'd love to talk to you and really drill into the different areas of your business that we can help with. Again, we work with many customers around the world in many different industries, and we found ways to help them that are unique to them, that are industry standard, and we have a great set of tools that will help wrap up all this data in easy to digest ways, both centrally, locally, for employees as well. We're also producing a new report, so keep a lookout for that. It will be focused around artificial intelligence and drill into some of this data in a deeper way as well. So I think it's about that time to open up for any questions that may pop up or have popped up through the webinar. So I think Daniel is still on the line to field some of those questions.
I'm indeed, Sami. So I can see that we've got a couple of questions coming through, and feel free to keep firing those away. So, Sami, there's a question here that came across, and the question is, what if you're new to systems like Quinix or workforce management systems? Where does this data come from that you need to do this analysis, and how do you start compiling all this data?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, we obviously spoke a lot about what we do today and using our tools specifically. And we engage with a lot of businesses that are in various or in different parts of their journey to optimize their business using technology. And some of them may be using Excel today. Some of them may have existing systems, but want to take them a step further and start to either automate or use things like AI and machine learning more in the business. So I think when we engage with a business that is new to workforce management, it doesn't mean that they're new to data gathering or technology. And I think a lot of the times they have this data or a lot of the foundation of this data already. It may just not be compiled in one particular place. So your point of sale system or footfall counter, or wherever you're correlating or collating the types of products that were sold, or number of products that were sold, or the types of patients that you're dealing with, or whatever it is that's relevant to your business. We can take that data and we can start to use that as a bit of a baseline to build labor rules around that. We can also work with you to establish labor standards if you don't have them already. We can do time and motion studies. We can help define business rules and labor rules so that the generated schedules that we aim to put in Quinix bear a lot of relevance to what the outcome should be based on this data. And I think that one of the beauties of using technology like machine learning is that if you're using machine learning for forecasting, let's say, it can look at a lot of the historical data and automatically learn from this to generate a forecast. And that, as we discussed, happens in a much faster and more accurate way. So there's really no minimum amount of data that we require, but the more you have, the better, of course. And I think it's just about understanding where that data exists today and how we can utilize that in the tools that we use to help Quinix roll forward to help you as a business. So that could be data from the HR system, from your, as I mentioned, your point of sale systems and so forth, and new data that we work with you to help gather. So we know we've been doing this a long time. We know the right questions to ask to really dig in to figure out what's going on in the business and where you want to be.
And here's one that's slightly related, Sami. So how much data will we need to provide as a business? and what can you help us in providing? So what can Quinix do to help provide that data, and,
Yep.
and how much?
Absolutely. So I think I touched on a little bit in the previous answer. There's really no minimum, but when we're talking about, say, forecasting in particular, then of course, the more data you have, the more evident that trends become. So if you take 1 year's worth of data, it doesn't mean that that's what happens every year. But if you take 5 years worth of data, you can start to average out some of those trends, or see if public holidays always yield the same results, or if Sammy's always calling in sick on a Friday for the past 5 years, or if it's only been 1 year, or whatever the case may be. So the answer to the first part of that question is there's no minimum, but the more you have, the better the results. But if you are a completely new business, it doesn't mean that this is going to be irrelevant for you, because trends build up over time. So the sooner that you start using solutions like this and looking at data, the better, of course, because I'll start to see trends, week over week, day over day, month over month, and so on. And how can we help you with that? Well, again, I think I mentioned a little bit earlier that we can do things like time and motion studies to determine the labor standards. So we can look at both through our partner base and through the tools that we have. We can help understand, even at a really granular level, how long specific body movements take for an individual that might be making coffee, and how long does it take to greet a customer, that comes through the door and make them a coffee on average, and take payment, and so on. And all these things add up to the labor standard that defines how much labor is required at any given time, based on the amount of customers that are coming in, or the amount of coffees that you're forecasted to sell, all these sorts of things. So we don't have to go that granular, and it is case by case, business by business specific. But the best thing to do, really, to get a more detailed response is absolutely get in touch with us, and we'll chat with you about the type of business that you are, the data that you currently have, and any gaps that we see might need to be there. But I think I'd end the answer to that by saying that it is a journey. You don't necessarily want to go from pen and paper or Excel and jump into the deep end of AI, machine learning, automating everything. But there are steps in between those two extremes to help prepare the business to use those tools in the right way. And Quinix, as a company, as a solution, is very much designed to help take you on that journey. So part of that answer depends on where you are in that journey, and where you want to be, and how we help get you to that next step.
And I think related to that question, and you addressed this a little bit, Sammy, but are there any limitations in terms of the data drivers that might be applicable in different industries to forecast labor? Any limitations?
Nope, not really. So at the end of the day, data is data. It is usually just a number that means something to that business. So given that we work already with customers, across healthcare and logistics and retail and hospitality and leisure and everything in between, they all use different types of metrics. But the one thing they have in common is, more often than not, it's a number that represents something. So our solutions are designed to work with really any type of variable that you are going to use as a business. The only thing I'd say is that you want to ensure that number, that variable, that KPI has some sort of correlation to the amount of labor that you would require. It doesn't have to be a direct correlation, meaning that if I increase my sales, then my labor has to automatically increase. It could be there for guidance for local managers and central managers to understand in a greater depth with different data points what's going on in the business. But more often than not, the numbers, the data points, the variables that we use are connected to automation. So the automation of generating a demand, of producing a schedule, and so on. But the short answer is no. There's no real limitation to the types of things that we can work in, and the common ones, of course, are things like footfall, sales, budgets. It could be number of patients, could be number of things like calls, if that's affecting the business, types of products sold, whether you're in manufacturing or warehousing, number of packages to deliver. It really doesn't make any difference to us. So we can help build rules around that using your knowledge of your business and how you would react to that. And I think to end that one, I think a lot of the times, when people talk about forecast and they say, well, we've never forecasted our business to determine our schedules. And I think if you went and asked one of your best schedulers in your business at one of your stores, why are you scheduling this amount of people today during this time? They'll probably, hopefully, be able to give you an answer that is more than just, well, that's what we did last week. They know how the store is, how full the store is, how many people they need to provide the better level of customer service or adhere to the budget that they've been given. And that in itself is an element of forecasting. Using the knowledge from those local managers can help build out the foundation of that.
Thanks, Sammy. And there's another question here in regards to the machine learning capabilities. I think you've answered some of that in relation to generating the forecast. Is there anything to add there from you?
No, I think we can. I'll try to keep it not super technical, but of course more than happy to dig into the technicalities with you if anyone would like to. But there are, again, a number of ways that we can produce a forecast, and some of them will be machine learning, some of them will be statistical, some of them will be, copying forward historical data plus or minus a percent or something like that. They could come from within Quinix, they could come from a number of our different partners, they could come from tools that you have in place today. But the beauty of using something like machine learning is that it can compare often 20 or more different ways of generating a forecast in a very, very, very small amount of time and automatically select the most accurate one moving forward. And if you are the type of business that uses multiple business drivers to generate a demand curve, because you might have different types of labor that are forecasted from different variables. And using machine learning, that can all be taken into consideration, and you might find that one, let's call it an algorithm, or one way of generating a forecast for one variable might differ from another area of the business. And of course, things like machine learning can do all of that in a blink of an eye and generate the forecast and roll it forward. So they can compare the actuals with historical data automatically. They can be told or directed what to do with outlier information. Do you want to flatten the curve on public holidays? Do you want to take public holidays into consideration and compare Black Friday with Black Friday and forecast for that event? Often they can forecast information based on external events, school holidays, elections, football games, whatever it might be. So, there's a lot of stuff to take into consideration. There is something to be said for trying to keep it a relevant level of complexity. You don't want to throw everything at it under the sun, but keeping in mind what is relevant to your business, we can help shape the types of things that a machine learning type of algorithm might take into consideration for your business. Weather is often something that people talk about. Yes, it can absolutely be taken into consideration, but the weather forecast is often not very predictable. So what does that mean to your business if I've forecasted the schedule based on a sunny day tomorrow and it starts raining tomorrow? What do I do with that labor? Well, I should have to reallocate that rather than release it. That could be one way of working. So it's a really interesting but in-depth conversation. Hopefully that answered a portion of that question.
Indeed, I think a lot to follow up on that. I think we have a second question here, which is, can we input historical sales and customer count data for more than a year? So we have 120 stores and 5 years worth of historical data. can the system cope?
Yeah, absolutely. We'll take it. 5 years is a great amount of time. There's, again, really no limitation to the amount of data you want to throw at these things. That often more is better. But yeah, 5 years is a great amount of time to look at data. It's easy to identify trends that may occur over there versus, you know, a really good year or a not so good year that might have tweaked those results in one way versus the other. So yeah, a year is fine, but 5 is fantastic.
Excellent. Thank you, Sammy. And there's another question here. If you maybe don't have that many sites or stores or number of staff for that matter, do you have any recommendations for those types of customers or businesses?
Yeah, it's a very good point. So a lot of this that we speak about can often help with, you know, large customers, large amount of sites, but a lot of it is irrelevant to the amount of sites or even employees that you have. So if you look at, you know, capturing information or data from your employees using things like those surveys, right? That's hugely relevant regardless of the amount of employees or sites that you might have. You can also, let's say you have 3 sites where you can still compare those sites to one another and look at, is one doing things that others could learn from? What are the trends in the overall business? Drilling down into, you know, labor cost and compliance breaches in different areas of the business. That's data that's hugely relevant without having a huge number of sites as well. We can also use varying degrees of optimization and automation as well. So it may be that I have a small number of employees in the store at any given time, but I might still have a lot of employees on my books. Some of them might be agency workers and so on. So if we are generating a demand curve or an optimal headcount graph inside the schedule that might be optimized on something like a budget, then I'll still be able to see in real time as I'm using more expensive employees, is that breaching my optimization on cost or not, if I'm calling in too many agency workers or something like that. So I think a lot of the ROIs that we looked at are based around using the right tools in the right way, not just AI, machine learning, automation. And I think as we spoke a little bit about earlier, there are varying degrees of how you go about that journey. And rather than fully automating an entirely scheduling process, if you have, you know, a few number of stores with a few number of employees, it may be that you're, you know, semi-automating it by creating a sort of template which you roll out and then tweak day to day to adhere to changes like sickness or you know, absence in any form, where the bulk of the work has been done for you through the digitization of that fixed schedule pattern, and you're just dealing with the day-to-day deviations. Now that's one way that you can see, you know, a very good amount of admin reduction without going full automation and full technology, without throwing so much technology at it, but using some of the tools to help guide you in that process. So yeah, I think a majority of the data that we spoke about today is still very relevant regardless of the size of the store. It may just be that the types of information, the granularity of the data for a larger store might be on a bigger scale. But, you know, even using external events to help understand what's going on outside the business's environment can help shape that small business. You know, should I have a sale today or not? Because today is, you know, the fourth Thursday in a month where the ice cream van pulls out the front, and all of a sudden I get this influx of people out front of the store. Understanding things like that could be very helpful to a business of any size. So I think data is relevant regardless of the size of the business. It's just about the right data for your business.
Thanks, Sammy. I can see there's a few questions on how can we learn more, how can we gain access to some of these reports and industry data. Any remarks from your side, Sammy, on where the attendees can find more information about this?
Yeah, absolutely. So as I said earlier, we have a report coming out where you can definitely find a lot of information that takes it a little bit further than this. This was really sort of tip of the iceberg stuff to help you guys understand, the things that we like to talk about, what we're thinking about, and how we love talking about data. Beyond that, we're only a phone call or a chat or a virtual meeting away these days, where we can we would love to drill into some of the specific questions that you have. We love talking about this stuff. This is the fun area of technology, talking about how we can help businesses and help you build out a sort of ROI case based on the tools, workflows, or data that we have available to us. We do have some resources on our website as well, and often, the internet is a great place to just search for industry trends and data as well. There's companies like Gallup that do a lot of analysis. I think we've seen data from companies like Aberdeen and McKinsey as well. In our previous reports, you'll see a lot of data that we've gathered through our own research as well. So the information is definitely out there, both Quinix specific and generic. But if there's something really specific, by all means, drop us a line, pick up the phone, give us a call. We're more than happy to be, transparent and have these conversations with you on how we can help you.
Absolutely. Thanks, Sammy. Yeah, so feel free to get in touch on anything to follow up, and there'll be more information to follow after we close this webinar. All right. Thanks, everyone, for today. Hopefully it's been informative, and thank you for all the questions as well. Look forward to being in touch with every one of you, hopefully.